In exactly 1 week, we will be getting the official kickoff of the 2025 NFL season. So we are going to make sure you are fully prepared for your fantasy football drafts this weekend. We covered our running back rankings earlier this week, our wide receiver rankings as well. Today, we are on to our final top 30 quarterback rankings and tiers for the 2025 season. And fellas, I think the unique thing about a quarterbacks ranking episode is that some leagues are super flex, some leagues aren't. So we're covering 30 for those of you in super flex leagues, but we also recognize some of you might only be playing in single quarterback leagues. The top 20 guys might actually only be relevant to you, but we'll make sure to spend a lot of time on the guys at the top end, specifically this first tier, this S tier, the 4 elite guys that you have to have on your team, in my opinion, if you really want to win a championship. It's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. Our consensus is in line with where these guys are going in terms of average draft position, but I think we all have these players in a different order. Cameron, what order do you have these 4 quarterbacks in?
I go Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, different quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
Oh, you got Hurts at 5. Okay.
I do, but I have him by 2 points, and I will admit my ranking for I'll spoil it, Joe Burrow, and is it like a ceiling ranking? And for Jalen Hurts, it's like a median ranking. So if I'm drafting, I'm still taking Jalen Hurts higher than Joe Burrow because I have them so close, and I understand the ceiling is better for Jalen Hurts.
Yep, totally. And again, if you're statting up Burrow to his ceiling, there's regression that we could see from last season. But Ty, I'll just turn it to you. Where do you have these guys ranked then? In what order?
I go Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. For the longest time, I had Lamar as my first guy, and I had Jaden Daniels ahead of Jalen Hurts. Some tweaks here and there, and mainly because of the Terry McLaurin situation, I'm a little concerned about the start for Daniels and that Jalen Hurts, regardless of if we pass more or not, he's still going to be a threat on the goal line.
Yeah, so my top 4 here, Josh Allen at 1. I won't say clear one. That sounds a little bit disrespectful, but then I have Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts separated by literally 1 point. A singular point separates these two between 2 and 3 for me. And then I do have Lamar Jackson not too far behind as my quarterback 4. And the point that I'm trying to make in having us share our rankings on these guys is any of these guys can finish as the quarterback 1 overall this year. Yep. And the common denominator, it doesn't take rocket science to figure it out. They all have incredible rushing upside, right? That's why we put them in the S tier. Cameron, is there one in particular that you like drafting more than the rest out of this bunch?
So I know I have Lamar first, but it's Josh Allen, just because I understand you have to take him steeper. But if you're going to bet on a guy who's for sure going to finish in the top 3, no matter what, under any circumstance in the entire world, like, Martians, Death Beam, all that,
Okay, Max Kellerman.
It's Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen. Well, I mean, he might be the Andre Iguodala of the NFL. Like, that could be a way to look at it. But I feel like Josh Allen is about as insulated for fantasy football as you can possibly get. He's going to be a top 2 quarterback because he has been for the last 5 years, and nothing's changing for him. So it doesn't matter who his wide receivers are. He scores a lot of rushing touchdowns, puts up rushing yards, puts up passing touchdowns.
It'd be really nice if he had an alpha wide receiver 1 to really solidify the passing numbers. But hey, you know what? Yeah, once upon a time, a Stephon Diggs, right? Ty, what about you? Is there one that you prefer out of the bunch here?
It's probably Josh Allen too, just because there is, I think, for all the same reasons. Like, there is little that can really knock Josh Allen off of being a guaranteed top 3 guy versus all the other guys need things to fall a certain way. They've had it in the past with like Jalen Hurts and Lamar, but I'm just willing to bet on a repeat with Josh Allen just because we've seen it for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah. And speaking of 3-4 years, I mean, that's why Jalen Hurts is my favorite to draft out of the bunch, because he's going at the end of this tier, and I think he gives you the same level of upside in debatably the best offense in all of football. And I'm backing up my talk of, hey, I don't think the Eagles run as much this year, which means the rock is going back into Jalen Hurts' hands a bit more. Now, I'm not saying that means he's going to be like an astronomically better passer this year or have a ton more passing attempts. But what I also know is that you talk about insulation for fantasy football, 10 rushing touchdowns, 13, 15, 14 the last 4 years for Jalen Hurts. And the 14 last year were with Saquon Barkley in town. So to me, I just see a guy where he's got an alpha in AJ Brown. He's got an awesome running back who's going to make sure they get in scoring position, and Jalen Hurts is going to make sure he finds the end zone. So he just goes like a full round later than the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons of the world, where I think he just gives you equivalent upside, and you can draft him a full round later, and he's on debatably a better offense than both of those two combined. So not combined, better than each of the two. But I digress. Let's talk about this next player because he has a tier to himself. Cameron, you alluded to Joe Burrow here. Joe Burrow is a fascinating one because he could be in this elite range, this elite tier of quarterbacks, but it feels like he just needs a tier to himself because he's also doesn't belong in the same tier as a lot of the other guys that we're going to name after this as well. So I don't know. Does it feel fair to give Joe Burrow his own tier? Or would you actually, even though your ranking is at its ceiling, would you put him up in the S tier?
I think it is fair because I think he's the only quarterback outside these top 4 who I feel like has quarterback 1 overall upside this year, but he doesn't have the same rushing insulation as the other guys. If, like you said, he has a regression this season where he throws 33 passing touchdowns and 4,500 yards, and you took him as a top 4 quarterback, that's going to end up being a bad pick. And that is still a great season, right? He needs to hit close to 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns in order for it to be worth it. The thing is, he has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and probably the worst defense in football. So it feels like all the chips are falling in the right place for him to continue to hit that. And he hasn't really given us a reason not to believe it outside of injury.
What say you, Ty?
I think that Burrow rightly deserves his own tier here because I can see the way that he can finish in that S tier of quarterbacks. I also see a world where he can finish at the top of the B tier, and that really is just on the back of passing touchdowns. The formula is all there to kind of repeat what we saw last year. I'm just willing to bet that, again, with the floor of the rushing production of the guys above and just not getting that with Burrow, that's what's going to kind of keep Burrow as the one guy in his own tier. Good quarterback. He doesn't offer the same as the other 4 guys.
Pass happy nature of the offense. You're still really bad on the defensive side of the ball. Going to find yourself in a lot of shootouts. You still got debatably the best wide receiver duo in the league. Yeah, like Joe Burrow, to me, he belongs above this next tier quarterbacks that we'll crack into in a minute. But man, if he had even just an ounce more of rushing upside, I think that there's a really strong case that you can put him in the S tier with those other top 4 guys. Before we do dive into that next tier, though, I had set a goal about a week and a half ago now that I really wanted to try and hit 5K subs before the regular season. Now, I regret to say I don't think we're actually going to get there, but we're still on the road to 5K, and the amount of support you all have been showing over the last week and a half here has just been mind-melting to me in a lot of ways. So thanks so much. If you're not subscribed to us yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest content is up. You can even go back to our page, check out our running back and wide receiver rankings from earlier this week. But ultimately, as much as we want to provide you fun fantasy football insights to help you beat your friends, we want to remind you that, hey, you are playing with your friends and you all enjoy doing this together. And there's a ton of camaraderie and fun that comes with playing fake football with one another. It's how the 3 of us got to know one another better and really build the friendship that we all have today. Hopefully we can remind you of the good nature that comes out of fantasy football as well. The B tier. This is an interesting range of quarterbacks here because I think they all have, can I say they all have similar upside and similar downside, just kind of in their own unique way. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Caleb Williams, which that's a name to talk about in this tier. Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, and Kyler Murray wraps out this tier. I do want to talk about Patrick Mahomes because I think it's easy for us to sit back and say, well, you know what? Patrick Mahomes has been disappointing. He's been right around the quarterback 6, quarterback 8 in terms of fantasy points per game. The last handful of years, if not even worse than that. But Cameron, could this be the year that we get kind of a resurgence of the old Kansas City Chiefs with the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce days. Could we get that with Xavier Worthy, a taste of that with Xavier Worthy this year? Rashee Rice officially suspended for the first 6 games of the NFL season, but 11 games with Rashee Rice when it matters most in crunch time of the regular season. Like, we could see some fireworks from this Chiefs passing attack. And I think a lot of people are starting to think, hey, what if we do get a jetpack on Patrick Mahomes back again and we see him finish inside that S tier of quarterbacks?
Yeah, really it's just going to come down to the offensive scheme, because we've seen the transition to we're just going to live by giving defenses 1,000 paper cuts and just taking what's there, and moving away from it was those big deep shots. It was deep crossers. It was moving the ball in chunk plays when we saw that quarterback 1 overall finish. So that's going to be interesting. But like you alluded to, a big part of that is we just haven't had the playmakers. You haven't had a Tyreek Hill out there. Travis Kelce's been on a slight decline. So if Xavier Worthy is the real deal, then yeah, I think we could really see that, especially once Rice gets back, especially if Hollywood's healthy. All the chips could fall into play. It's just unlike Burrow, where we know for sure that that's the offense they're going to run. A, Kansas City doesn't have to run that same style of offense, and B, we're just not as sold on the weapon. So I think we could see it. I'm just not betting the house on it.
And what's fascinating about Patrick Mahomes here, Ty, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, is like, Cam, you have Patrick Mahomes at 8. I have him at 7. Ty, you actually have him the highest at 6 here. Is that because you're projecting a shift in the offense to start getting Xavier Worthy involved downfield more, seeing, again, not so much of the death by 1,000 paper cuts, the dink and dunk? We're literally just going to play super annoying football to beat you. Like, are you seeing a shift in this offensive dynamic at all?
I am enough to put Mahomes comfortably at the top of this tier. The other part of this too is that you're going to have what you should have, I should say, improved offensive line play. You got Josh Simmons, who's going to be an absolute stud, barring any kind of setbacks with injuries and all that stuff. But the offensive line should be improved. Yeah, Rashee Rice being out for 6 games does hurt at least the chances right out of the gate of kind of starting hot. But I do think, again, that this offense is now built better than it has the last couple of years to be much more of a downfield team rather than, like Cam said, the death by 1,000 paper cuts, the button hooks that just go for 5 yards. And then or then you got Xavier Worthy just running a little shallow cross or something like that. Like I feel like this offense can expand a little more than it has in the past.
The one thing I do want to see Patrick Mahomes improve upon this year, I need to see a better deep ball completion percentage from Patrick Mahomes. That has quietly been a problem. It's not that Xavier Worthy just can't keep 2 feet in bounds and can't put his hands on the ball at the right. There are those plays, right? But I don't want to sit here and pretend that Patrick Mahomes has been accurate with the deep ball either. The last 2 years, back in 2023, a 27.9% deep ball completion percentage. That was 33rd. 26.5 last season. He took a full, basically, 1.5% step down. That was 34th last year. It's concerning enough to me that if Patrick Mahomes doesn't improve in that department, we might need to be having a different conversation that's not necessarily about Xavier Worthy, but is actually about, hey, can Patrick Mahomes actually hit the deep ball as efficiently as he used to? I don't know what's necessarily happened within that. We don't necessarily have the time to sit down and analytically or film-wise break that down right now, but that is something I do want to see. If they do see, if this Kansas City Chiefs does change the dynamic of their offense enough, I need to see Patrick Mahomes hitting on that deep ball a little bit more frequently than just over 1 in 4 times that he's throwing it. The next name on the list I think is going to catch people off guard. And I will say this. It is one person out of the 3 of us who is really inflating the ranking of Caleb Williams. That's not to say that Ty and I'm going to out you, Cameron. You're the one who's got him higher than Ty and I. And that's not to say Ty and I are out on Caleb Williams, but I think your ranking of Caleb Williams is really aggressive. I don't mind it, but sure a little bit more.
Yeah, it comes down to the fact that he does have sneaky rushing upside. So that gives him a little bit more. And I've talked about it a million times. for me, it really is like B and C I could put into one tier. I understand the break. I do think that there is some nuance in points, but I am projecting a step forward for the Chicago Bears offense. I do believe in what they're doing. I believe in the pass catchers. I think Caleb Williams is a decent enough thrower of the football. I think he could crack 500 rushing yards this season. So it's just a mix of all of that where passing is going to take a step forward. I'm projecting, 28 passing touchdowns. I'm projecting him to break 4,000 passing yards, 500 rushing yards. Like that is something that we've seen get guys this high. Daniel Jones got that high essentially with like 3,200 passing yards, right? Just because of the rushing upside that he had. So I think that adds a lot to it. I'm not projecting Caleb Williams to be like an MVP candidate. I'm not like projecting him to have a Baker-esque season. It's just going to be good enough passing that the rushing is going to kind of elevate him to that spot.
Ty, I'll be curious to get your thoughts here. I think the one thing that's really holding me back from planting my flag on Caleb Williams being this massive breakout guy this year is I wonder if Ben Johnson is going to keep this offense just a little bit too vanilla for like he's going to want to create explosives like any good offensive minded coach does, but he's talked about wanting to get back to the simple elements of the game, hammering home the fundamentals, the simple out routes, the simple go routes, right? Things that will kind of like make sure you dink and dunk your way down the field and make sure this offense is at least gaining yardage. Where are you at on Caleb Williams? We've talked about how much we like the Rome Odunze and Colston Loveland for two guys that you and I have both been coming up on recently. But how does Caleb Williams fit into that narrative for you?
Yeah, Caleb's the interesting one for me because I feel like he's going to be the easiest one to track in terms of where he will end up in this tier. And it really is by how well he plays under center and how well he plays quarterback rather than playmaker. Caleb has always been the playmaker, and now he's going to be in such a structured offense that I'm more so betting that there's going to be some growing pains, but I'm willing to bet that he's going to get more and more familiar, more and more comfortable as the year goes on. So again, that's why I say he's going to be the easiest one to track in terms of where he's going to finish in terms of these group of quarterbacks, where it really feels like we each have like our own guy in this tier, maybe two. But again, we will be able to track it or track how well he finishes in this tier based on how well he gets adjusted and how well he comes accustomed to this new Ben Johnson offense.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good way to maybe explain the range in which we see Caleb Williams finishing this year. And we'll move on to another quarterback then, where Cameron, you see it as Caleb Williams can still use this creativity, this playmaking, this extending of plays within a structured offense like Ben Johnson and actually capitalize on that this year. Rather, Ty's kind of on the other end of like this offense is still really, really structured. Caleb will still have opportunities to be creative, roll outside of the pocket, and create something with his legs. But that's where I kind of lean as well. I almost wonder if this offense is going to be too structured, and Caleb Williams is going to take a year to play within the structure before we see a potential, quarterback 6, quarterback 5 finish going into next year. But that's all to say, we all like Caleb Williams. We all have him ranked as a top 12 option. Cam is just more bullish than Ty and I for the reasons that we've kind of laid out here. Baker Mayfield is next on the list. We've talked about him quite a bit in regards to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where his quarterback 7 price tag in drafts just feels rich. And like, I think I maybe will speak for all of us where, consensus quarterback 8, he's my quarterback 7 currently. That's like tip top of where I have Baker finishing. I don't see him finishing anywhere close to what he had last year, or like far out surpassing the projection I have for him. So that's the thing with Baker Mayfield. I'm drafting one of the top 5 guys, Allen, Lamar, Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Burrow. I'm skipping over 4 of the 6 quarterbacks in this tier. And I'm probably just going to target anybody else in the C tier. That's kind of how I'm handling the quarterback position this year. Ty, I know one of the guys you're probably not willing to skip over in this tier, though, is Brock Purdy. And he's the guy I am throwing my hat into the ring here for as well, and saying, yeah, you know what? I'm probably going to pass on Mahomes at cost. Caleb, I have enough questions about. Baker is just at the tip top of his price. But Brock Purdy, though, he's going late enough in drafts. I think he has enough upside there. He's shown he can be a top 6 guy in the past. It's just a matter of, can he get enough good weapons on the field to make sure he gets there? Where are you on Brock Purdy? How bullish are you?
I'm pretty bullish on Brock Purdy. He's actually the second guy in this tier behind Mahomes for me. And I've said in the past, Purdy, his finishes are, I don't want to say that they travel or that they follow the pattern of how the 49ers offense goes, but that's kind of how it's worked in the past. How when the Niners are at the top of the league in terms of scoring and in terms of offensive production, Brock Purdy's up there in terms of the fantasy quarterbacks. So with when I look at the schedule and the playmakers that are still healthy here in San Francisco, I think Brock Purdy has a really, really good shot at being one of these top guys in fantasy football. You brought up the point, only having Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey as like your top 3 playmakers doesn't sound like a lot. And I feel like a lot of people are just putting too much attention on the receivers, on the receiver room, I should say, with Juwan Jennings. Sky Moore apparently is going to be the wide receiver too, like at the beginning of the year at least.
Dude, they keep losing bodies. Like, I don't know what the heck they're going to do in this wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Like that has to matter at some point. Like, I know Kyle Shanahan can kind of make magic out of thin air sometimes, but boy, when it's Ricky Pearsall and like Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey are 3 awesome weapons to have. Do not hear what I'm not saying, but boy, if Juwan Jennings isn't out there, Demarcus Robinson is suspended 3 games. Who else did they just lose in the wide receiver room recently? Someone went down to injury and they cut somebody. And now apparently, like you said, it's Sky Moore who they traded for. That apparently is going to play the wide receiver 2 role now. But go ahead. You can finish up your thought there. I think that's important to note, though.
Yeah, I ultimately think the trio of Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey is still good enough to help Brock Purdy produce in fantasy. I get the wide receiver room is thin, but when you've got playmakers like that on your offense and Kyle Shanahan calling the shots, I'm still willing to believe in that offense.
And this 49ers defense just isn't as loaded as it once was. They lost a few like big pieces throughout the offseason. So the 49ers could find themselves in more pass favorable game script than they have in the past. And that only comes at the benefit of Brock Purdy of needing to chuck the ball around the yard a bit. Dak Prescott, I already told you how much I love Dak Prescott. We talked about him in, was it a league winners video? I believe it was a league winners video. I labeled Dak Prescott a league winner because of simply the weapons at his disposal now, the lack of convincingly good defense, no running game as well. Brian Schottenheimer, I think, is going to let Dak cook this year. And if you really want to sprinkle in the fact that it's an odd year, and if you want to go look at Dak's finishes in odd years, that's all I'm saying. That's a terrible piece of analysis, but we won't waste too many more words on Dak Prescott. You can go back and watch our league winners video. I talk about Dak at the end of that video, how much I love drafting him this year. But Cam, I'm gonna have you close out this tier for us because you're still in on Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is like the one person I think every year that I can just count on you being in on when Ty and I have both decided we're kind of done playing the Kyler Murray game.
Yeah, I can't quit Kyler. I can't. Last year was disappointing, right? I think everyone can acknowledge that. So where did he finish? Oh yeah, he was still a top 12 quarterback in fantasy points per game. I get it. Like, it was ugly. 3,800. What was he? Yeah, 3,800 passing yards, 21 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He didn't run quite as much. Still almost had 600 rushing yards. He's fine. Like, my thing is, he's one of the best. Right, he's got just enough rushing upside that he has just such an insulated floor where he can play bad again this year. And if you're taking him quarterback 10, 11, 12, you're not going to get hurt. I'm not taking nearly as much Kyler as I had last season. I'll admit that. Like, I've definitely cooled off a little bit, but I just don't want us to push him down and say, it's not a great pick, not a great quarterback, because from a fantasy perspective, he is. He is just a good quarterback. If he gets a season where maybe Trey McBride catches 8 touchdowns instead of 2 touchdowns last year, he has 27 passing touchdowns, all of a sudden we're talking about him in a very different light. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that they're taking this huge step forward. But what I am saying is, even if they're bad, he's still a good enough fantasy quarterback that you're feeling decent week in and week out.
He's just so wishy-washy, man. Like, that's such a terrible analytical word to use, but like he's so wishy-washy where it's like I'll get 2 good weeks out of him, and then the third week he's just kind of like a duck. In what I can't remember where I read or saw it from, but like there's been times where Kyler's just like, no, I don't want to run. I don't want to scramble. I'm just gonna sit in the pocket and be a pocket passer and not utilize the best part of my game, which is being athletic and scrambling with the football. What's that?
I said I do feel bad for Cardinals fans. It would be frustrating to have him as your NFL quarterback. I'm not and defend him there.
Yeah, no, that's also like, but it shows up in the fantasy football stat sheet though, right? It's like, oh, great, a quarterback 6 week from Kyler. Great, a quarterback 9 week from Kyler. I'll take that. Oh, but he gave me the quarterback 22 this last week. And it's like this repetitive, almost like 2 to 3 game cycle where it's just like, all right, I got my 2 games from Kyler. I almost know when to not start him. Ty, what makes you want to, like, I don't want to say quit Kyler Murray this year, but you and I have my quarterback 12, which is kind of like, that's probably where I think he's going to realistically finish. That's where he's kind of finished every year. He has the floor of quarterback 12, but I'm almost wondering if it's not a floor and it's more of just like the average. But where are you at on Kyler Murray?
There's a common saying when it comes to these kind of mobile rushing quarterbacks that is what you're investing in. And then the passing production is just kind of the added bonus, especially for the guys at the top. Kyler is that quarterback of this tier, in my opinion, because you know that, again, the rushing production has always been there in full seasons and in not full seasons. It's always been there. But the question that you have to ask is, like, how good can the passing production be? Like we've seen back in 2020, he was a top 5 quarterback. That was on the back of 26 passing touchdowns, 3,900 passing yards. Last year, 21 passing touchdowns, 3,800 passing yards. Now, obviously, other fantasy quarterbacks have been able to produce in other ways, and that's what maybe has kind of pushed Kyler down the board in that sense. But that's where my pessimism and my questions lie with Kyler is how good can the passing production be? Because I don't exactly think that Arizona's passing game is going to take a giant leap forward to where Kyler Murray can get into that top 7 kind of level of quarterback. There's a way. I mean, of all the red zone targets that Trey McBride has gotten and not come through on, like Cam said, maybe 4 of those come through. I mean, I just took a look last year. You give him 4 extra passing touchdowns and he's then the quarterback 8, quarterback 7. So it's certainly possible. I just don't think I've seen enough in this Arizona passing game to make a claim, to stake a claim that it can get better from what it was last year enough to push Kyler into the upper levels of these quarterback rankings.
Which I think is a perfect way to just put a bow on Kyler and say, you're going to get the rushing production. It's going to be wishy-washy some weeks. But if you think he finishes any higher than this, boy, you're basically betting on almost like a godlike season from Kyler Murray. And I just don't think that's within the cards if he doesn't improve in the passing department, like you said, Ty. Look, 11 quarterbacks down, fellas. We still got 19 that we're going to cover. If you want more reps leading up to the regular season, though, against real people for real monetary prizes, Underdog is the place you need to go do that at. You don't have to deal with bots over on Sleeper or random people in ESPN lobbies not paying attention to their picks. They auto pick a kicker in the 8th round, which you know is never going to happen in your home league. Go do your reps with real people over on Underdog. We'll take a quick break and hear from them. Today's show is brought to you by your friends over at Underdog, home of Best Ball Mania 6. There are $15 million in prizes up for grabs, with $2 million going to first place and another $1 million going to second place. Entering is super easy. You join a draft with 11 other people, select your team, and Underdog will automatically generate your highest scoring lineup each week. Essentially, you get all the fun of drafting with zero stress of making the wrong decision on who to start. Underdog hosts a variety of other contests as well, ranging from $3 entries to $500 entries, so there's something for everybody's pocketbook. If you're not on Underdog yet, use the code FELLAS when you sign up, because they'll give you up to $1,000 in bonus credits to play with, and we'll give you our 2025 draft guide for free. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Alrighty, fellas, 11 quarterbacks down, 19 to go. The biggest tier in this list is the C tier. It's Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Jared Goff. End of tier. All right. A lot of quarterbacks in this tier. But can I be honest? Just like a lot of viable options that could outperform anybody in the B tier. And I do want to start with Drake May because I do think he's not my highest ranked quarterback in this tier. But if I had to place a bet, Cameron, on one of these guys breaking his way towards the top of the B tier come end of season, I think it would be Drake May.
Yeah, I think the biggest differentiator between this tier and the tier above is it really feels like there's a decent case for all those guys in the B tier to kind of go to that Joe Burrow-esque, whereas it feels a little more outlandish right now just to see these guys in the C tier take that jump. So that's where it's capped. But again, Drake May, sneaky good rushing upside last year. Like, not even sneaky, like just really good rushing upside last year.
Good. If you paid attention, it's good rushing upside.
Yes, it was extremely good. And then you add in the fact that they're really trying to invest in getting him actual pass catchers. If last season he did not have actual pass catchers on that team, they
were all made up.
it was not great. They might as well have been. So now are you bringing in Diggs, Kyle Williams? Almost forgot his name. I don't know how, but
not my most drafted player.
Exactly. No, not at all. You have Travion Henderson, right? You have an exciting player who can make plays happen, who's going to help him in the passing game because they're going to get him in open space. So you're just adding all these factors into what we saw last year. And, you look at where Drake May finished. It was, if you're looking at like just strictly points per game, it was low, but that's because they added a game where he didn't score at all. So that
right.
He didn't play full. That's why I'm saying they added it. But he was pretty decent from a rookie. It'll remain to be seen how big of a jump he takes. That's the issue. That's why people are nervous about Drake May is right. We are projecting that what we saw was good, but he's going to take that step forward. Right. That's what I'm doing with Caleb. You guys are just like, I just don't know if he does take that step forward. So that's where it gets scary. But yeah, if the passing comes together, he has that rushing upside that will push him into the B tier.
Yeah, and it's not rushing upside. We're not sitting here and telling you it's of the same caliber as a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, right? The guys in the S tier. But, Ty, he has just as good of rushing upside as like Kyler Murray. And people have been hot and bothered by Kyler Murray in the past. You actually have Drake May ranked the highest out of all of us. You have him as your quarterback 9. So go ahead. You can go ahead and show some love for Drake May as well.
I just think that this situation, for as much improvement as we see across this offense on the offensive line in the playmakers, Drake May will still have to kind of take over games himself. I find it to be very Justin Herbert-esque in the sense that like this offense is kind of on Drake May's shoulders, and I'm willing to bet on arm talent. I'm willing to bet on, again, rushing upside in what is going to be a much better offensive structure under Josh McDaniels. So again, it is a bit, I don't want to say it's a bit of a stretch to say that he can be a top 10 quarterback is very much a prediction, is very much a gamble, because what he did show us wasn't enough to say that it's more likely than not. But I like the playmaker that is Drake May. I like the pass catchers that he has now versus last year. It felt like he's just kind of hoping and praying that somebody is going to be right where, where he's throwing the ball. So all these things combined, maybe the sneaky part of this for Drake May. Are we sure that a Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the goal line guy with his?
Yeah. What if it is Drake May?
What if it's Drake May? Right? Like it's
Hunter Henry.
Austin Hooper, isn't he still on the team?
Tyler Warren before Tyler Warren became cool.
Was thinking of Arthur Smith. That's my bad. Right.
True. So again, not saying that's going to happen either, but there is a world where like Drake May can be this sneaky 5-6 rushing touchdown guy out of nowhere because they can't trust Ramondre Stevenson. Travion may not be, the most ideal candidate for on a goal line when you're just trying to go downhill and get the ball in. So Yeah, I'm kind of staking my claim here on Drake May as the guy in this tier.
I do want to have a fight over Trevor Lawrence. It's a 2v1 fight. Sorry, Ty. You're by yourself on this one. And he's kicking back, drinking his Mountain Dew.
I do just want to say, Lucas, this could just be me and you against the entire everybody else. Like
It could.
Ty might be. I do want to throw that out there.
I was talking about the three of us, where it's you,
man of the people. That's all I'm saying.
Yes,
I might be the man of the people.
He might be. I've also heard some very smart people in the industry also say, "Hey, if the chips fall right and the Jacksonville Jaguars under Liam Cohen just absolutely click this year, like we could finally be looking at that breakout season for Trevor Lawrence." And I think that's where I'm at. Like, this is an offense that I want to bet on because of the exciting pieces that they have within it, because of the talent that's accumulated within this offense, because of the play caller who produced a career year for Baker Mayfield last year, led him to 41 passing touchdowns through the year, over 7% touchdown rate. That's a dude I just want to bet on, who's going to be running a substantially better offense than whatever the heck Doug Peterson was putting out on the field, which was basically, all right, Trev, drop back deep. Hopefully something's open over the top for you. I don't know what factors into your quarterback 9 ranking, Cameron, but for me, I love so many pieces of this offense. I think Liam Cohen could do wonders in shifting the culture and the structure of how this offense clips down the field. And Trevor Lawrence is just coming out. He comes out as my quarterback 9. And I'm like, I'm so far ahead of ADP. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is definitely terrifying. I said Drake May, right? I kind of said he had sneaky rushing upside. He didn't. He has good rushing upside. Trevor Lawrence has sneaky rushing upside. He's a guy who could fall in the end zone 5 times, right? And you're just like, oh, wow, Trevor Lawrence had 5 rushing touchdowns. I'm not projecting that he's going to do that. I mean, that's not what I'm saying, but he does have that ability. And like you said, we've seen a decent year from Trevor Lawrence in the past. It's not like we're coming out of left field with this, right? His first year, oh man, I had it. Now I completely lost it. I've blown it. I've blown my cover.
2022 finished as quarterback 8 overall under Doug Peterson.
Exactly. He had 4,100 yards. He had 4,000 yards in 2023 as well. Just had 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He had 25 touchdowns last year. Brian Thomas, another season. Like, we've talked about how special Travis Hunter is. You look at Brenton Strange coming along, De'Ami Brown. They're going to factor in, obviously not anything to write home about. And this rushing attack, they have enough decent players that they're going to figure it out, right? It might not be pretty for fantasy for one of them, but among all of them. And then you factor in, Liam Cohen's going to make this fantasy, or going to make this quarterback friendly. And that's what I really like, is slow it down a little bit for Trevor, but also provide options for big plays. And that's just something he hasn't had really ever. And so that's what I love there. What are you two laughing about?
I just need in post, I just need occasional cuts to Ty just kicking his feet up and munching on a bag of Mike and Ike's as you're giving your cake. Because what that means to me is he's about to have just like a diabolical clapback to whatever we just provided. I'll sum it up like this, Ty. I think Cameron and I both are giving a very strong endorsement of what we think Liam Cohen can do for this offense. You're just not there, flat out.
I just first off have to say that was very entertaining. I enjoyed the 5-minute break. And now I'm going to come in with the real facts.
With the
real facts.
You mean Baker Mayfield's touchdown percentage last year wasn't a real fact? His 41 passing touchdowns? Oh my goodness. Go ahead.
How far or how good do you think this Jacksonville team will be?
Like record-wise?
Sure. Yeah. Let's start there.
I think they could be a 10-win team this year.
15-2?
Of course. I knew that was a dumb question as soon as I asked.
Probably an 8 or 9 win team. Probably an 8 or 9 win team for me.
So, okay. That's the first thing. Second, do you think this Jacksonville run game can be as good as the Tampa Bay run game last year?
No, but I don't think it needs to be. That's my answer.
I don't think it is that as well either.
It'll be much better than it was last year under Doug Peterson. But again, to get Trevor Lawrence here, I don't think it needs to be as good as what we saw from Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. If you want to call Rachaad White good last year.
So in what it's going to likely be a not so high powered offense for being a 10-win team at best.
Why are you assuming that?
It's Jacksonville. No,
Where are my Mike and Ikes?
Yeah, here you go. I just ultimately think that we are putting too big of expectations and we have too high of hopes for a Jacksonville offense. Yes, that has really good playmakers in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, but that doesn't automatically mean that we're going to get, again, a 40 passing touchdown type season from Trevor Lawrence. I think without a run game to fall back on, sure, we can talk about a team like Dallas who's going to be throwing the ball all over the yard and still putting up fantasy points. Maybe the ultimate concern, I just don't think that Trevor Lawrence it's going to click in year one for Trevor Lawrence. At least Baker Mayfield, before his 40 passing touchdown year, had some continuity in Tampa Bay because he was there already.
Sure.
Trevor Lawrence, yes, he's had Brian Thomas Jr. for what was half a season. Travis Hunter is a rookie. Like there's a lot that is changing here in Jacksonville that I'm not ready to say I'm not ready to put my claim on this Jacksonville offense being good enough to having Trevor Lawrence being a top 10 quarterback. Is it in the range of outcomes? This is the $1 million question. Is it in the range of outcomes? It is. I have to admit, I have to be honest. It's in the range of outcomes. But I'm going to bet more so on a gradual growth than an instant year one success in Jacksonville.
Baker Mayfield in 2023, that season that you referenced, before that was under Dave Canales while he was still there. 566 attempts, 364 completions, just over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, only 163 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. That got him to the quarterback 10 overall that season. I don't have Trevor Lawrence like blowing past that. If anything, I just have Trevor Lawrence scoring more on the ground than I do anything else. And that I think he is. I think he's going to provide more on the rushing side than Baker Mayfield did in that season. So, like, I don't have Trev getting to like way past 4,000. I don't have him like breaking NFL records in any sense as a pocket passer. I just think it's like a really good mix of what Liam Cohen can provide this offense from a passing perspective and what Trevor Lawrence can also provide creatively with his legs and how he has a little bit of a nose for the end zone once they get close.
What was his finish on a per game basis that year?
Well, okay, we could talk about that too. I mean, we could talk about the per game basis where that was much closer to the quarterback, 1920, I believe it was that season. So you could name that, but again, that's where I think the difference comes out, right? Where I think the rushing upside that Trevor Lawrence can provide in comparison to Baker Mayfield, that could make up for the difference there. Is this more of like a ceiling projection? Yeah, I would say it's more of a ceiling projection. But it's also an offense that I would rather go down swinging on than like be late to the party on and say, oh, you know what? Those might have been the pieces that could have put me over the top last year based on what I've seen in the past from the context that we know. Alrighty, we'll keep it moving. That's a really, really healthy piece of Trevor Lawrence for you all. We've talked about a lot of the different pieces of Jacksonville, but we haven't actually gotten into the guy who's helping the offense chug along in Trevor Lawrence. So that was actually a little bit cathartic for us in a lot of ways. Justin Fields, we've talked about how it's Garrett Wilson. We've talked a little bit about Breece Hall. The thing with Justin Fields is like, oh boy, if he's not creating bigger plays with his arm, it's been like check down after check down after check down after check down this preseason. I believe like his average air yard per attempt is like 3.6 yards or something. It's something just vomit inducing. So yes, you can get the rushing upside with Justin Fields, but boy, you are running a really big risk investing in him as a passing quarterback. Bo Nix is a fascinating one because in drafts, he goes alongside the other quarterbacks in the B tier. Tyler, I believe you still have him ranked as such. You have him as your quarterback 8. I have him at 15. Cameron, you've got him pretty far buried. So this is like the inverse, right? Where Cam is bullish on Trevor Lawrence. Ty, you are like equally in on Bo Nix. And Cameron, you are completely like not. I don't want to say completely out on Bo Nix, but like Ty isn't believing in Trevor Lawrence. You're just not believing in Bo Nix.
Yeah, kind of, but also this is where the big tier really. He's my last player in this huge tier of for me from quarterback. I think it goes 9 to 19. So that's essentially where it is. If I give him one more rushing touchdown, one more passing touchdown, and 50 more passing yards, all of a sudden we're talking about him being the quarterback 12. So that's how close I have all of these guys. That's why it sounds so bad. Yes, I am down compared to where he's being taken. I just don't think he takes a huge step forward. I think he had a touchdown heavy rookie season. I don't see him throwing 30 passing touchdowns again. That's where I'm coming from for this, but I still think he's at least a 25 passing touchdown guy, at least 3,800 passing yards. I just also think they're going to be able to run the ball more and not rely on him in situations when they don't have to, because the offensive line is so significantly good.
Yeah. That's where I kind of land on Bo Nix too. It's not that I don't think he can give you a top 10 season again. It's more that I don't think they'll have to rely on him as much. And I don't know if the efficiency in return is going to make up for the decrease in opportunities they put the ball into his hands. It's not that I'm like out on Bo Nix or hate him. Again, it's just kind of where the projection shook out. And I should probably look and see how far he actually is away from the next range of quarterbacks. But Ty, I'll let you kind of give the pro Bo Nix case and why you think he can repeat what we saw in his rookie season.
Quarterback 6 on a per game basis from week 5 on last year. And I think when I look at the Denver offense and how they played last year, it was very vanilla, and it was very much on Sean Payton, just kind of getting guys open for Bo Nix. I think there's a step for Bo Nix to not be as reliant on getting on having guys getting open for him. I saw enough again from weeks 5 on that Bo Nix is actually a very good quarterback. I'm willing to bet that this offense, for as much as they may be more okay running the ball, I'm still going to bet that this Denver offense can put up points. 20 passing touchdowns in the red zone last year for Bo Nix was, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, was 8th most of all quarterbacks, tied with Josh Allen and Jordan Love. So maybe it's just my bet on this Denver offense having another very productive year, but I just can't ignore what Bo Nix did after getting used to NFL speed, getting accustomed to NFL defenses, and having Sean Payton and having an offense with a better run game and having another weapon besides Cortland Sutton now in Evan Ingram. I just find myself going, yeah, Bo Nix can be a legitimate top 10 quarterback again this year.
Bo Nix is only 7 points behind my quarterback 11, Brock Purdy. I mean, that's how close it is for me, right? Again, you shift a passing touchdown and 30 yards, more than 30 yards, but you get my point, right? Like, you can cut the cookie however you want. And Bo Nix is looking at a top 10 quarterback again this year. So it's not that I'm out on Bo Nix, again, just where the projection shook. And I think there's a world where, whether it's based off an opportunity, whether it is like these smallest to sophomore slumps, I would rather bet on him being like a high-end quarterback 2, low-end quarterback 1 than inserting him right into the top 10 conversation again this year. But to each their own. Like, I don't disagree with anything you said, Ty. I think it's a valid point to make it on the contrary. But again, just how my projection shook out and where he falls within literally the fantasy point breakdown for me. This next pocket of players here: Herbert, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Jared Goff. They all literally, like, within drafts. It's quite literally Jared Goff, JJ McCarthy, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. Like, that's the order in which these quarterbacks go in drafts already. Let's just like each pick one to briefly touch on, because once you hit the end of this, I think it's kind of the end of where most single quarterback leagues are kind of looking at quarterbacks. So, Cameron, if you had to pick one guy to draft out of this range, who is it?
I hate that because honestly, this is my favorite range to draft in. Like you said, if I don't do those top 5, I love all of them. I'm going to talk about Jordan Love because I think we forget that last year he had a lower body injury, and we're holding it against him like he was healthy the entire time. You add in Matthew Golden, who sounds like he's playing good. Tucker Kraft's around another season. He's healthy. He has a left hand injury, but I'm not too concerned about a right-handed quarterback with a left hand injury. And he was the quarterback 5 in 2023, averaging 19.4 fantasy points per game. He could be one of my favorites in this tier, outside of probably Drake May, to finish at the top of the B tier. And you are getting him so unbelievably late. I think I took him in an underdog draft, and he was the 21st quarterback off the board.
Oh,
that is insane to me. And he's a guy who 2 seasons ago, the last time we saw him healthy, had 4,100 yards and 32 passing touchdowns. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I understand why, but I think we're just too low on Jordan Love this year as the fantasy community as a whole.
And this is a good Green Bay Packers offense that has a really good established run game with Josh Jacobs. This tandem can work so well. Again, we saw Josh Jacobs tear it up last year, but again, I think they leaned on him more than they probably anticipated with Jordan Love dealing with that lower body injury majority of the season. I think it's very plausible they just put it into his hands again. Let Josh Jacobs, take some of the pressure off, obviously, and make sure he gets his own as one of the highest paid running backs in the league. But Jordan Love, I agree. I think that the community is too low, and he's a guy who could easily sneak into the top 12 this year. Ty, which one are you taking out of this range?
I'll talk about Jared Goff because it feels like a lot of people are going to look at that ranking for Jared Goff and they're going to go, why is he so low? He's been a top 10 quarterback the past 2 years. Well, let's put this in perspective. On a per game basis, he was closer to the quarterback 15 than he was to the top 10 quarterbacks before last year. And he was, the quarterback 8 in points per game last year on the back of 37 passing touchdowns, 4,600 passing yards. This is just us saying, like, we're expecting him closer to 15 and maybe even 20 just because you lost Ben Johnson. We're not expecting 37 passing touchdowns again from Jared Goff. He is still a very good quarterback for that Detroit offense. It's just a bet, at least for me, it's a bet that we're not going to see that kind of offensive ceiling on Detroit again this year. And so it's going to be anywhere between that 15 to 20 range.
I want to talk about JJ McCarthy because Justin Herbert is my next highest ranked quarterback in this range, but it's literally him and Jordan Love are like 0.0 or 0.75 fantasy points apart from each other. So I think, as much as I like Jordan Love, I like Justin Herbert just as much. But the thing with JJ McCarthy that I'm a little bit concerned about, it's not that I'm avoiding drafting him, but he goes quarterback 16 in underdog drafts. Again, real people, real prizes on the line. I understand that's not necessarily reflective in your home leagues, but I just wonder if this Minnesota Vikings offense is going to be more balanced than people anticipate. I'm a believer that a tiger doesn't change his stripes. I think if you're Kevin O'Connell, you're good at throwing the football. You're scheming up a good passing, efficient passing offense. But with additions along the interior of the offensive line, really shoring that up, bringing in Jordan Mason, I wonder if they are going to try and have a little bit more of a balanced approach to relieve some of the pressure off of JJ McCarthy. I still have this offense throwing more than they run. I don't think they're going to be a perfect Detroit Lions split where, they're running the ball 500 times and throwing the ball 510 times. I don't think it's going to be that close to a split, but I think where people are aggressively drafting JJ McCarthy, it's that they saw what Sam Darnold was able to do last year. And they say, well, it's JJ McCarthy. He probably won't do it as good in his quote unquote rookie season, but he could still have a really, really good rookie season and produce top 15 numbers potentially. And I think Brett Coleman made a really, really good point last year that if you compare Sam Darnold's numbers to Justin Herbert's rookie season stats, they're relatively the same. So if you think JJ McCarthy is going to repeat what Sam Darnold does, you're getting historically one of the best, again, quote unquote, rookie seasons of all time. I just don't know if that's fair to set the expectation for with JJ McCarthy. That's why he's lower in my rankings. He's not a bad quarterback pick because we know the upside is there with Kevin O'Connell, but it's more of my heat of caution for people aggressively drafting JJ McCarthy. I know an underdog, there's stacks involved. You want to make sure you stack with Jefferson, Hawks, whatever, but that's my one piece where if JJ McCarthy doesn't perform as well from a fantasy perspective this year, but the Vikings are still a 12-win team, I think that's really the reason why.
No, and I think that's all definitely fair. it's his first season at the end of the day, right? And so it is just a mixed bag, no matter how good it all looks from the outside.
We'll move on to the D tier. Again, like I said, the end of that last year is really where you're probably done considering quarterbacks in a single quarterback league. These next range of guys are probably for your 2 quarterback leagues out there, your super flex leagues. It's Geno Smith, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, myself, Michael Penix, and Cam Ward. And by myself, Matthew Stafford. I see the jokes out there. I know you all think I look like Matthew Stafford, and apparently people who I love and adore in my life also think that as
More
well.
of a Bryce Young, but that's just
definitely not.
the hair.
Well, the Stafford pin, it's the hair, it's the same facial hair growth, it's everything. So anyways, let's just each choose one player to briefly touch on here. I think it's gonna be the best way to cover this tier. I don't want to say Cameron, pick your favorite out of this tier because that feels like a really gross question, but correct me if I'm wrong. No, I'm gonna let you pick. I did this to you last episode where I said pick a player, and then I said, oh, but actually you should talk about this player. So go ahead.
I know who you want me to talk about, and I am going to talk about them. I'm going to attack them head on. Tua Tagovailoa. If you've heard me talk, you know I'm
not
bullish.
who I was expecting.
Okay. Well, if you heard me talk, you know I'm bullish on the Miami Dolphins offense. And I think he can still have a decent year. I've sat it out for 4,001 passing yards and 28 passing touchdowns. The issue with Tua, and we've gone over this every single season, is he has zero rushing upside. He just doesn't offer any of that. And so he needs 4,500 yards, 35 passing touchdowns to even crack into the B tier. And so that's why, even if you're hearing me talk about it, I still think he's going to be decent. I just don't think he's going to do enough where you're like, yep, this is where I want Tua. So that's kind of why he's lower. I just want to put that out there of, we don't think he's toast. We still think he's going to be decent for the other wide receivers or running back. He just doesn't offer what's good for fantasy football.
Which, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You would need a season of, what was that, 2 years ago already that we saw Tua and it was like, man, you know what, Tua could actually put up top 12 numbers. But that's because the Dolphins were having a historically efficient season, and you literally need that out of Tua if he's gonna.
And
snap.
he wasn't even top 12 in that, or he was quarterback 9 that season,
right?
And he was quarterback 21 in points per game.
Right.
That's the issue. Is like, okay, he was good, 4,600 yards, 29 passing touchdowns, and he was still quarterback 21 points per game.
Yeah, right. Ty, who do you want to touch on here?
I'll touch on my guy Bryce Young. I just am a fan of this Carolina offense. Ted McMillan is such a dynamic playmaker to have in this passing game now that he has actually a guy that he can go to. Not saying that Thielen wasn't, or that Jalen Coker wasn't, or Xavier Legette wasn't. But I am willing to bet that what we saw out of Bryce Young the second half of the season after their bye week, when he was the quarterback, I had the stat. He was a top 10 quarterback. I know that for sure. He was a top 10 quarterback.
After what week? I'll fact check you.
It helps when you have 5 rushing touchdowns. So I don't think we're going to be getting an absurd amount of rushing touchdowns, but it doesn't help, or it is not a bad thing to have that kind of in your back pocket. So I'm not saying that you need to wait on Bryce Young in your drafts to be your starter, but I would say if there is a guy that you should be keeping tabs on for the year, it is Bryce Young, because I think that this Carolina offense is able to take a step forward now that you've got a playmaker like Ted McMillan, improved offensive line play from what we saw, or with what we saw last year, I should say. So Bryce Young, he's kind of my guy in this tier to at least keep an eye on throughout the year.
Yeah, Bryce Young, after the Panthers bye week last year, from week 12 on, the quarterback 6, averaging over 21 fantasy points per game. Bryce Young is one of my, if you're in one of those redraft leagues and you just you wait and wait and wait to draft your quarterback, but then all your league mates start drafting 2 quarterbacks and you're like, yeah, but there's some really good values I want to scoop up here. I'm not saying you should walk out of your single quarterback league with Bryce Young as your quarterback 1, but if you need a quarterback 2, you really feel like you need a quarterback 2, and all the guys in the tier ahead of him are gone, then scoop out Bryce Young. I think he's a perfectly fine option as well. I'll briefly touch on Cam Ward. Cam Ward is one where apparently out of camp, he is the dude, like commanding the Tennessee Titans offense. He's commanded a ton of respect already. And I think you saw that a little bit in the way Cam Ward played at Miami as well, where he'd have moments of brilliance, but then he'd always just have one of these like boneheaded interceptions. Like, Cam, what in the world? What did you even see there? But what was really admirable then is that he would lock in and say, I made a mistake. Now I'm going to bring my team back and make sure we still end up on top despite my mistake. And you saw that at Miami. So I think that's something that will absolutely translate to the NFL. I think he just has this he kind of oozes this confidence that I think will really rub off on this Tennessee Titans offense. And I think Brian Callahan is going to have a ton of fun helping him play within rhythm, within structure, which was just something that Will Levis and Mason Rudolph literally do not have the capacity to do within their skill set. It felt like last year, which stunk. But I think Cam Ward's going to be a ton of fun. He's again one of those guys that just came out of my projections lower than I expected. But if we look at it come end of season, and Cam Ward is like the quarterback 16 at the end of the year, I'm not going to be surprised by that, because I do think he actually has a lot more upside than where he's going at cost right now. All right, obviously we skipped over a lot of names in that tier, fellas, but let's just close it out. Last three guys, one of them is really only a full-time starting quarterback. It's Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Shuck, and Daniel Jones. I just want to ask you both a question. How much juice does Aaron Rodgers have left, do you think? Because that's what this comes down to. He could be one where he's like quarterback 27 to 29 for all of us. But again, is he just like one of those guys you look up at the end of the year and you're like, dang, Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback 15 this year? Like, does he have that kind of juice left, do you think?
No. He was quarterback.
I mean, it's like, but like, it feels silly to just like write off Aaron Rodgers. But like, I don't know. The Steelers offense doesn't excite me.
Yeah. And he had almost 30 passing touchdowns last year, just shy of 4,000 yards, which feels like his ceiling this season on the Steelers offense. And he was quarterback 19 in fantasy points per game. I mean, he's essentially where Tua's at right now with less weapons. So for me, it's the wheels could fall off this year too. So I think it's completely justified to have him here.
Ty, you in the same boat?
I'm in the same boat. He had everything you could want. Obviously, the coaching was the downfall here in the Jets offense last year, but he had everything he wanted once they got Devontae, quarterback 23 in points per game. So he can have everything that he wants. Doesn't exactly mean that it's going to produce for fantasy. So I prefer to just look at this from a fantasy lens, because anytime you try to talk NFL with Aaron Rodgers, you get people bringing out the pitchforks and the torches and all that. But from a fantasy perspective, Aaron Rodgers, wrong position, same name, wrong position. There's literally no reason to really invest in Aaron Rodgers in fantasy.
When you look at that, like, just headshot of him too for this year, it's terrifying. Like, I pulled that up. I literally pulled it up. I'm like, dude, you couldn't even like give a soft smile. It's just straight up like you're staring into my soul. It's terrifying. I felt something like stir within me. I'm just like, ugh. I feel wrong that Aaron Rodgers is. Ugh. I didn't like it. I literally copy and pasted it, and I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to look at this headshot of Aaron Rodgers anymore. We're not going to bother talking about Tyler Shuck or Daniel Jones this year, likely because you're not going to be considering them in your fantasy lineups.
I will say, the only reason we have Shuck over Rattler, at least for me, is even though Rattler's starting, I still think Shuck plays more games at the end of the year.
Correct.
That's what it comes down to.
Yep. Good call on that. That's probably a helpful piece of context. And same goes for Daniel Jones, right? I think we all have it set out where Daniel Jones starts more games than Anthony Richardson does this year. We will have one last set of rankings coming for you all on Friday, tomorrow. Our tight end rankings, our top 30 tight end rankings for the year will be out then. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell as well, so you know when that video drops. If you want our full statted out projections, not just our tiered rankings on these players, fellsdraftguide.com. You'll get our full statted out projections, full key insights on all 32 NFL teams, offensive structures, stats that go into our research, key additions and subtractions from the offseason for these rosters, a lot of value we added this year into the draft guide with that feature. So if you want to get your hands on that before your drafts this weekend, fellasdraftguide.com. Otherwise, you can check out our other content as well. FF Fellas over on Twitter, the FF Fellas over on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, TikTok. If you're a YouTuber through and through, I totally get it. We got a shorts page for you as well. Fantasy Football Fellas shorts. Got a nice salmon color on today. The outfit doesn't quite piece itself together, but you all only see me from basically like torals up anyways. And
This
you don't
bit
really care
makes
what.
me glad I'm gone tomorrow.
You're gone tomorrow? I didn't
Are
even
you
know you
doing
weren't
the
going to be on the tight ends
I
episode.
told you this.
No, you didn't.
This has been discussed. Yes, it is. I will pull up.
Ty, has it been discussed? Back
Can
me
you
up.
like can you give us like a clue and maybe it'll like ring a bell?
I
Did you talk about it over the weekend?
Yes.
That's
And I
probably
sent
why.
the text. Unreal. Brutal. These guys don't even listen to me. Maybe you shouldn't either.
No, we really.
Well, you're
Unsubscribe.
I mean, you may have said it and you slurred your speech a little too much. That it was,
Oh, all right.
so.
All right. I'm never coming back.
Thanks for
God.
tuning in. I will.
I'm joining
We will
Fantasy Football
see you
YouTube.
tomorrow for the tight ends episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.
Deuces.
Deuce.